folks. I'm Dr. Jamara Welch of the Supermodel Society, where we seek to influence, educate, and inspire. And today I am starting off my Inspire series by having a very special guest. I'm so excited to have joining us today, Makil Robbins. She's the wine girl. Hi, Makil. Thanks for joining us today.
Hi, Jamara. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. So before we get started in the interview, I do want to share your bio with viewers because your story is amazing, and I'm just hoping that people will just be hitting you up a lot to converse with you. So Makil, the Wine Girl Robbins, is a certified specialist of wine through the Wine and Spirits Education Trust and certified sommelier through the Court of Master Sommeliers in Beverly Hills, California. She started her wine journey at a young age in her grandmother's backyard vineyard. The Concord grapes introduced a palate that would far surpass grape jelly and table wine. Her love for great wine launched her into the restaurant field of hospitality in Southern California. Makil immediately found her home with the Sims Restaurant Group in Manhattan Beach, California. Working for a local family-owned wine bistro, Makil valued the philosophy to put people first instead of profit. Great service is a mindset, one that Makil holds clear and dear to her heart, taking care of people and making every person feel like a guest in her own home. Taking care of people came quite natural to Makil, which allowed her to focus her talents on a grander scale. She joined the sales distribution team for Epic Wines and Spirits in 2014, servicing top on-site as well as off-site premises such as the Penthouse, Bel Air Country Club, the Estate, to name a few, in West LA. She developed key relationships with industry leaders, suppliers, as well as international brand ambassadors. Makil's reputation in the wine industry granted her the opportunity to join the celebrity chef Wolfgang Puck's team as assistant wine director and manager for Cut in Beverly Hills, the Beverly Hills, Wilshire area, at the Four Seasons Hotel in 2017. Here, Makil learned the tools of running a Michelin star top wine program and servicing the most elite guests in the world. Makil is an independent certified sommelier and restaurant consultant and developing wine programs for top restaurants, managing wine cellars for private collectors, as well as contributing her service as a sommelier to celebrities and business wine connoisseurs alike. Makil, thank you so much again for joining today. I really appreciate it.
Jamara, that was such a beautiful introduction. Thank you so much for highlighting all of those key items. I sent out the press release and the press kit, but I didn't think you would hit every single one. So
absolutely, I want people to know who you are.
My career journey has been pretty extensive, so there's a lot of different avenues to go down in the wine industry. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. So before we jump in, I do want to let viewers know how I actually met you, how I came to find out about you. I have to tell this story.
Okay.
So one of my hobbies is I have a private supper club that I have on Facebook. It's called Table 8. And so a couple times a year we'll get together and we'll have these Zoom cooking sessions. And this happened because of this year with COVID and everything. So I said, okay, well, let's do this online. And so for one of the sessions, I thought, hey, I'd like to do a wine tasting. And I'm not a person who's big on drinking alcohol, but there are two alcoholic beverages that I do enjoy. I like rum punch, and I also enjoy a great glass of wine, or maybe two. And so with that, I said, hey, we're going to do a wine tasting session. We're going to do a virtual wine tasting. And for me, it was important that I found a Black-owned vineyard, and then I needed to top it off with a Black sommelier. I had to find one. And so I was scouring the internet looking for someone, and I was not getting much. There wasn't a lot to find.
Yeah, there's not a lot of us out there.
Yeah, but I was so happy to come across LinkedIn because you were listed on LinkedIn just in 2017 on their top 40 African-American taste makers under and over 40 that the Wine Enthusiast magazine didn't mention. They needed to mention you because you are phenomenal.
Thank you. I'll have you go and submit.
Phenomenal. I mean, after that, we ended up having the wine tasting, and myself and the ladies that joined us, it was such a great time. And then as I've told you before, people are saying, Jamara, when are you gonna do this again? When are you gonna do this again? And so I'm just again, I'm honored that you are here. Thank you again. All
No,
right.
thank you. It was a lot of fun, and I got the right wine for you for the next month, the next time we do this.
Well,
We're
I'm
gonna have
eager to know. I'm eager to
a blast. Well, yeah.
Okay. So first question I want to throw out there, just talk to us about your journey to becoming a sommelier, because I know it's a lot into it. How do you, like,
Yes, girl, it is a lot. I'm gonna need some wine before I answer that one.
I should have brought my wine. I should have got some, but
Oh, it's okay. I'll drink for you, girl. Well, you know, a lot of people always ask me this question: how did you get into wine?
Mhm.
And honestly, I think wine gets into you when you
Okay.
taste it and you experience it. And it's a very complex thing where, one, you don't understand it. And I have a very curious mind. And one thing I didn't understand was, why were people spending so much money on
Mhm.
something that was not going to last? You
Right.
can't wear it. It's an experience. You're going to spend $500 on a bottle of champagne, and why? I didn't understand the history. I didn't understand the culture. It was very puzzling for me.
Mhm.
I am a Hoosier from Fort Wayne, Indiana. I'm
Okay.
a beer and burger girl. So, you know, give me a burger and a PBR, I'm good. I
Okay.
moved to California
Uh-huh.
about over a decade ago, and I didn't know anyone. And I was working for corporate America. I got my master's in Chicago at DePaul, and I really wanted to just hang out by the beach
I
and,
heard that.
and relax, because it was right after the market crashed.
Right.
So I said, you know, I need to meet people. So I just, you know, let me just get a job waiting tables. And I didn't want to work at any restaurant. So I was asking around, what's a good restaurant where the food is great and the hospitality is great? And, you know, they directed me to the Tin Roof in Manhattan Beach. And that was when I realized that, okay, wine is like a thing out here. It's
Get it?
not like, oh yeah, you just pair red with whites and whites with red. No, it's a whole, there's, you know, wine tasting groups, there's vineyards up north. It's a whole culture, and
Mhm.
one that I was really fascinated by. And the more that I learned about wine, the more I realized I don't know anything about it,
Mhm.
and I should. And
Mhm.
I initially, I'll be honest with you, girl, I was money driven. I was like, wait a minute. So if I have a table and their bill is $150, and they tip 20% on that bill, and
Mhm.
if I can sell them a $200 bottle of wine, then
Right.
I'll make more money at the
Mhm.
end of the night. So I said, well, let me make wine my best friend. So
Okay.
I was learning all I could about wine so that I could sell it, and at the end of the day, make more money. And
Mhm.
I did that. I actually did it very well. That I won a trip up to Napa Valley to one of our vendors who was
Uh-huh.
like co-sponsoring the wine and supporting the poor. So I went up to Napa Valley, and it was just breathtaking. It was so relaxing. It was quiet. It was peaceful. I was in the vineyards. There wasn't a lot of people that looked like me, and I was just I didn't necessarily feel out of place
Mhm.
because, you know, I'm from Indiana. There ain't a lot of people that look like us either there. So I was just, you know, I never felt like race was an issue for me in
Mhm.
the wine industry, because I grew up in a small town of Fort Wayne, Indiana, where I'm usually the only Black person in my class, or, you know, I have my family in Indiana, but it was one of those things where you just have to learn to migrate and to adjust and to involve, and
Mhm.
um, and just live your life as who you are. So people are either going to accept you or not. And I
Right.
can tell you this, my experience in Napa was one of the most hospitable. I thought they thought I was somebody, because I was like, what did this vendor tell them about me? I mean, they treated me like royalty. And from that experience alone, I was like, oh, I like this industry.
Okay.
The winemakers are down to earth. They were farmers. They were non-pretentious. They were just your backyard folks, you know, sitting on the porch, having a glass of wine,
Mhm.
very easy going. And the whole culture of the wine industry was very, I would say, down to earth. When you're in the industry, you
Mhm.
know, you don't have a lot to prove.
Mhm. Mhm.
You're making wine, you
Right.
know, you're a farmer. When
Mhm.
you get into the business side of it, on the import side or the distribution side or the sales side,
Mhm.
that's when it becomes a whole nother level of, access and
Okay.
couture and class and this elevation of performance and presentation and how you're presenting the wine and telling the story. So that was just a whole nother element. But at the time, 10 years ago, when I was waiting tables, I didn't know anything about it. And
Okay.
I honestly believe that when you put things out in the universe,
Hmm.
it meets you more than halfway.
Right.
You know,
It's
I,
the principle of reaping and sowing.
yes,
That's what
yes,
it
absolutely. And, when when you're in a position
is.
like
Hmm.
I was 10 years ago, I never thought that I would one day own my own business in the wine industry.
Hmm.
You have to have faith and believe that where you are in your life is exactly where God wants you to be for
Right.
something bigger and better to come along. I
Hmm.
had no idea that I was laying the foundation, as they say, when I was putting on that robe and clocking in and wondering why I have to take this stupid test about the wine list and the 5 grapes of Bordeaux and all this crap. You never know that you're going through the storm, or you're going through the process
Right.
that's going to build you up to something better. So
Hmm.
once you get the knack for it, and I realized, going through this process, that I was pretty exceptional at tasting wines,
Hmm.
because I was negative 6.7 nearsighted, which means I couldn't see far distance.
Huh.
Yeah,
Okay.
I had these big old goggles that I used to wear. If I didn't have my contacts on, I couldn't see someone who was 2 feet in front of me. It would just be shapes and colors. I could not
Wow.
actually identify a person.
Hmm.
And so my nose and my palate overcompensated for my lack of sight. So when
Ah.
I tasted wine, I could taste nuances very keenly,
Hmm.
and I would usually get the wine right. And people would say, "Oh, you've got such a good palate," and I'm just like, "Well, you don't smell it. You can't taste that. You don't taste that salinity. You don't taste that earth. You don't taste the minerality." And people are like, I mean, I guess, you know. So I realized earlier on that I had a skill
Hmm.
for this industry.
That is so interesting because you're talking about, your sight and how well you could not see.
Mhm.
Um, but I'm looking at how God intensified your other senses, and it was perfect for this industry that you're supposed to be in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Yes. And at the time I was like hating these goggles and these
I mean,
glasses
it's
and
like it's literally like that's turning, a lemon into lemonade. Like literally, that's what you did.
thank you. I'll take it. I'll take it. I just, I didn't realize that, like you said, wearing glasses would one day evolve me into being a really good wine taster.
Yeah.
Um, After I worked in many restaurants, and I was at Chaya in Venice,
Hmm.
working at a very male dominant restaurant, very professional servers. And working in hospitality, I think every sommelier should be in hospitality, because that is one of the key driven things about being a sommelier. It's not just the wine. The wine will sell itself.
Hmm.
But when people see your passion and how warm you are towards what you do, and how warm you are about presenting the wine and telling the story of the winemaker, people are going to buy into that.
Hmm.
And when you take care of a guest, they want to take care of you.
Right.
I was at Chaya, and I was taking care of a guest at the time. And
Hmm.
I remember, I think I told you this story. I saw someone come in to Chaya, and
Hmm.
it was a female,
Okay.
and she had on this beautiful suit and these Louis Vuittons and a Chanel bag. And I mean, she just looked the part. And
Hmm.
she had her wine bag, and she presented the wines during the day to our manager. And it was probably 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And
Hmm.
I go, how did she get that job? I was like, I don't know any college, degree that allows you to go and drink wine and pay you during the day
Right.
at restaurants. It was very foreign for me. I mean, I grew up in Indiana. So
Hmm.
Indiana is one of the states that, we don't we don't open up on Sundays. We don't have liquor stores that open up on Sundays. We don't sell past 5 o'clock. We're one of those states that prohibits imports. We don't really put wine at the top caliber. So we don't have an enology degree or program, more so in Indiana, because that's not more so the focus. So coming out here and hearing her story and how she went to UC Davis and how she's been in the wine industry, and I said, wow, I really want to learn what you do. So I befriended her, and every time she came in, I totally took care of her. And she goes, you know, you should be in the wine industry. You should be a distributor. You're very passionate about wine. You're very friendly and likable. I bet you people will buy from you. And I go, well, sign me up, you know. And she said, you know, send me your resume. And, you know, one thing led to another. And well, that's actually one thing led to another was a long thing, actually. Hopefully I'm not talking too much, but I remember sending her my resume and I didn't hear from her for like 2 weeks. And finally I get a call in the morning out of the middle of nowhere. And it so happened to be Erin Ainsworth, who was the area manager for Epic Wine and Spirits at the time. And Epic is owned by Bill Foley, who owns the Knights in Las Vegas. And, you know, his side passion is Foley Family Wines and having this amazing portfolio of wine. I didn't know any of this at the time. And we had a phone interview. Erin called me in the morning and we hit it off really well. And he said, I would love to meet you and have you come in for an interview. Are you free to come to the coffee shop at like 9 o'clock tomorrow? And I was like, okay, sure. So, you know, I get there and I thought I was early at 8:45. He was already there. So I'm going, oh, I thought you said 9, you know, and he's like, oh yeah, I just get here early. I'm usually here at 8. And the night before, Jamara, I kid you not, because I knew about wine, but I didn't know at a level of a somm or to get a job in the wine industry, right? You know, and I was studying, staying up till like 2 o'clock in the morning, trying to figure out, you know, what's the varietals in the Bordeaux and, you know, what's the difference between Old World and New World. You know, I was really a little nervous because wine it can be intimidating and the industry can be very overwhelming if you don't know a lot and you don't know anyone that's in the industry and you really don't know where to start. I just know I didn't want to wait tables for the rest of my life and I didn't want to go back into corporate America. Yeah. So I said, I love wine. I want to get in the wine industry. I don't know how, I don't know the avenues or the fields, but he saw my passion and he saw that I was engaging and I was pretty down to earth. He said, you know, I can teach you everything you need to know to be a successful salesman, but I can't teach you to show up on time. I can't teach you how to be likable, how to not only answer questions, but ask questions and not let it be all about you. I can't teach you those values. You either have them or you don't. And I can see that you have them. And I would like to move forward and invite you to another interview. Wow. Said, okay. Yeah. I said, okay, thank you. Girl, we went through about 3 more interviews. I went through, they put me through the ringer and I was charming and, you know, just being me. If I didn't know anything, I said, hey, I don't know. And he said, how do you take no? You know, and, you know, sales is a lot about rejection. How do you handle a no? And I said, I think, you know, every no is just an opportunity for a yes. You just have to find it.
That's a good way to look at it.
Yeah. And so by the 4th interview, I got a call and he said, McKeel, thank you so much for this whole process and for your patience. You know, this has been a very interesting past month interviewing you over the last few weeks, and you're amazing and dynamic and you really impressed our head managers, but unfortunately we can't offer you a position at this time.
Wow.
I said, well, what time can you offer me one then? Girl, I wasn't taking no for an answer.
Right.
So he said, well, you know, unfortunately, I don't know when the next position will be opened up and be available. And I said, well, look, I got so excited about the opportunity of being in this industry. I really liked you. I really loved the portfolio. What can I do? You know, can I, you know, work with you guys? Because I don't want to be out of sight, out of mind the next time something does open up. And I really want to stay involved. So how about we work out some type of an apprenticeship,
Mm-hmm.
so that if someone else, maybe your competitor, is offering a position, I'll at least have some experience underneath my belt. And
Okay.
he said, okay, so you want to, like intern? And I said, sure. And he said, well, we can't afford an intern, And I said, well, I'll take compensation and wine and spirits. We'll figure something out.
That is so important. I'm sorry to cut you off, but the fact that you were willing to do an internship, because you had already, I mean, you'd already gotten your master's, all that stuff was already done, but you were so like, I want to do this, that you were willing to. That's important, because a lot of times people are not willing to humble themselves, I would say, to put in the work and do what is necessary to get to where they want to get to. So the fact that you did that, I mean, I'm sorry, I had to cut you out. I just had to throw that in there.
No, thank you.
It's important. And so for the viewers that are watching this, it is important to pick up on that. If this is something, if you really want to go after what you want to go after, whatever it is, you have to be willing to put in the work. And at times, take a back seat, humble yourself, take the apprenticeship, take the internship, do what you need to do. And then I'll be quiet now. Continue.
That's so important, and thank you, because we as sometimes females and African American females, we don't have the luxury of having those relationships that can get you in an in. So
Right.
people have no idea who you are. They don't have a reference.
Mhm.
Although Michelle was amazing, she just they needed to see me and my work ethic.
Right.
And I knew that once they had me in their environment, that I would sell myself. And
Right.
the fact that I did not take a no for an answer just only showed him that I
Mhm.
was good at sales. And I wasn't going to take a no for an answer. I said, let's figure something out. So
Right.
I ended up working with, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, I'm drawing a blank. I hope he doesn't see this video.
Okay, you're entitled. It'll come to you. It'll come.
No, it's Mark Chiat, who is now the vice president of
Mhm.
Epic Wine and Spirits. I
Mhm.
worked with him for about, oh my goodness, had to be a good 4 months.
Mhm.
And I was, his intern. So I did everything and anything he wanted me to do. He would send me home. He would send me home with piles and piles of PDFs. And this was before there was 750, which is a program that allows you to print tasting sheets for your vendors.
Mhm.
But I had to do everything the hard way. He said, buy this book, read this, read that. And I would go to him in all of his accounts. And at the time, he had the Podocram account. The account that I was initially interviewing for was Culver City.
Okay.
And they ended up actually hiring internally, and they gave the position to someone who was already internal, and they wanted to transfer. So I said, okay, that's fine. And I'm so glad that that happened, because Beverly Hills, Santa Monica was just the territory. I mean, I went to the Penthouse. I was going to these really high-end steak restaurants, Boa in Santa Monica, and dining at places that I normally couldn't afford to dine at. And, we get an expense account, and you're making relationships. And it was a very luxurious and glamorous profession.
Mhm.
You're
Mhm.
meeting winemakers, you're having dinner at Spago, and you're catering to the guests. So it's like being a server, but on a very high end level. And I knew I wanted to be in this field. So after 4 months, I'm working for free. I'm working with Mark Chiat during the day. I'm waiting tables at night, changing in my car midway through, exhausted, doing it for 4 months. Still got a smile on my face because they didn't offer me a job. So I remember we went to the Los Angeles Country Club.
Okay.
And one of the girls on the team at the time, her name was Erin. And the LA Country Club, are you familiar with the Los Angeles Country Club? It's a very exclusive, very elite country club that's been in Los Angeles forever.
No, I'm not, but tell me more.
It's beautiful. I mean, it's just full of your Nancy Pelosi's. I mean, it's very glamorous. So I came in and I was setting up, and I was meeting the rest of the team, and they had a lot of their club members there. And one of the girls, Erin, came up to me and she said, "Hi, are you a member of the club?" And I said, oh, I wish I'm here with Epic Wine and Spirits. And she goes, oh, you're with Epic? And I go, mm-hmm. And she goes, since when? And I go, for a few months now, since, oh gosh, July.
Mhm.
And she goes, well, what's your territory? And I go, I don't know these, the terminology. I was like, territory. I'm in the booth over there in the corner with Mark. And she goes, no, what's the area that you serve in? And I said, oh, I'm in Santa Monica and I'm in Brentwood. And but she goes, no, that's Mark territory. And I'm going, I'm sorry, what's your name? Who are you? And she goes, oh, I'm Erin. I'm in Beverly Hills. And I'm going, oh, okay, nice to meet you, Erin. And then I just kind of went back to Mark and I said, Mark, what's our territory? You know, I had no idea what she was talking about.
Uh-huh.
And it comes to find out, about a week later, she put in her, or not even a week, I think she put in her 2 weeks.
Mm.
Because I heard that she was asking for a raise. And
Mhm.
unfortunately, they at the time couldn't support giving her a higher compensation. But
Okay.
she must have felt like, well, how could you say that? And then you just brought in someone else to work Mark's territory. So, but she had no idea I was an intern and I was
Right.
working for free.
Ah,
She had no idea.
wow.
So, she left the company and they were like, well, we're going to need somebody in Beverly Hills. Why don't we put Mark in Erin's territory in Beverly Hills and
Mhm.
let McKeel work Santa Monica because she's already met all the vendors. She
Wow.
already knows your territory. She knows your
Wow.
run and she's great to work with. And it was bada boom, bada bing. So I just waited it out, and an option presented itself. So thanks, Erin.
That's awesome. Wow. In my mind, I'm saying, look at God and just how He brings, like,
Yeah,
this is the way.
this is the way. This is how it goes.
Right.
So, you just never know.
Mm-hmm.
Never
Mm-hmm. That is awesome. I mean, okay. Let me ask.
know. So yeah,
So, you've shared a lot about your journey. Share with us more about what inspired you to get into the industry, because I know you in your bio you talked about your grandmother and how she had a vineyard, and like talk to us more about that.
okay. Well, my grandmother, bless her heart, she had 8 kids.
Okay. My grandma had 10.
She had 10. Okay, and so that's what you do. You have 8 to 10
That's
kids. Like that's
what you do.
that's
That's what
it.
you
That's what you do. Um, and my mom passed when I was 3 years old,
do.
and
Oh,
I
wow.
never knew my dad, which is why my grandmother raised me.
Okay.
And my grandmother actually lived out here in California. I was born in Culver City.
Okay.
So
Okay.
my grandmother had a very she was cultured, honey.
Mm-hmm.
She's been to Napa and Sonoma, and I called her and told her, she's like, oh yeah, honey, I've been there. I was there when it was just putting the vineyards down. And I was like, well, you know about Napa? And she's like, how'd you learn? I think I learned how to make this wine and the grapes. And I was just like, oh well, okay. So I remember as a young kid, she had this fence
Okay.
for this trellis so that the grapes can grow up. And I would just come in the backyard and get my butt whooped from eating the grapes. So she said,
You're
"Leave my
messing with the wine.
I know, leave
Don't
my
do
grapes
that.
out." But I didn't know. I didn't know anything at the time. But I had no idea when I would see my grandmother make very rudimentary forms of wine. I don't think she knew enough the difference between the Concord grapes and that was making grape jelly that she could make wine out of it. It was very, thick, and she would strain it and go through this whole fermentation in our basement. And I was like, "Ooh, that smells." And she's like, "Girl, this is good. It's gonna be wine." And she would put them in her little gin bottles and seal them up and then let them lay for a while. And we would always just bring a bottle up when it was the holidays and Christmas. And I had no idea.
Phenomenal.
What's that?
That's phenomenal. I'm so continue. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. So that was me growing up at a very early age, not even knowing what I was even being exposed to as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
But I did know that wine was I knew growing up that I wanted to be in an industry that was community based,
Mm-hmm.
that was making a difference in people's lives. And I wanted to have something that I was proud of, that I would share with people. And wine is a very community based thing. It's just something that you share with people. It's something that brings people together. It's something that not only is an access to a world of culture. I knew I wanted to travel.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to sit behind a desk anymore and work, 13 hours for a law firm. I didn't want that. I wanted to go out. And yeah, and wine was that. So it was hitting all the tickets. It was a very classy industry to be in. And when you say, "Oh, you're a sommelier," and they're like, "Ooh, I can't pronounce that. What is that?"
When I first met you, I was like, "Am I saying it correctly?"
Yeah.
Sommelier. Like,
yes. And I say, "Oh, it's okay. My grandmother calls me a Samama May all the time." So she's like, "That's my baby. She knows she is Mama May." And I'm like, "Yep, I sure am." So, so I knew I wanted to be in an industry that had all those check marks, but I didn't know what the field was.
mm-hmm.
When I came out here, I pursued an acting career in California because that's what you do. It was presented to me when I was a server. People were like, "Oh, so you're a server. So who's your agent?"
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I was like, "You mean the restaurant that I work at?" And they're like, "No, aren't you, an actor?" And I was like, "No, no." And they're like, "Oh, well, you should be because it pays really well." And I was like, "How much you pay?" Sign me up. What I got to do?
Uh-huh.
So, I was fortunate enough to get my SAG and AFTRA card, but I didn't like the industry, and it's an industry that's very dependent upon other people to navigate your career, and I wasn't very keen on having that control into someone else's hands and letting it determine my value and my work, and I just didn't find it fulfilling internally.
I really resonate with what you just said, the part with the value and worth. So while I did not pursue acting, I did model. I did commercial print modeling for 4 years.
Of course you did.
When I was in college. But after a while, it just started to feel so shallow to me. And I've always been a person that's been into fashion and stuff like that. I like stuff like that. But being in the industry, it was tough because you were constantly being picked on. And when I say picked on, I mean, you're constantly being compared to other people, or you go into these auditions and it's like, "Oh, okay, well, you're not tall enough, or you're too short, or your nose is," it's just all this stuff, or you're not thin. And I was just like, okay, this is not it. So just, I resonate with that whole thing about looking at other people to determine your value and your worth. And I was like, for me, as a believer, I was like, no, the Most High determines my value and my worth, and I have more to give than just a face, if you will. So I really resonated with what you just said. So
thank you, and I completely, and I don't knock anyone for pursuing that. I have some really good friends who are still in the industry and they're working, thank God. I started my acting journey as a thespian in New York, where I went to the Lee Strasberg Theater and Film Institute. And I was able to work successfully in Chicago while having a 9-to-5, because Chicago is a very working city. So even if I'm doing voiceover, or if I'm doing industrial work, or doing commercials, it was very feasible for you to work and still have a job. So when I came out here, I just did not find that community. There's a lot of plays. I was involved in the Woman Theater Alliance in Chicago, and I love that sense of community and giving back and sharing your creativity and the art of everything. And I just did not find that community here in LA. So it just really deterred me to going into a different field.
Mhm.
I knew that I did not want to wait tables for the rest of my life. And God just kind of presented this opportunity and I went for it.
Mhm.
Because you just don't know. I mean, wine literally, it found me. It found me in a very humbling position, waiting tables. And one year led to another year. That night just eventually evolved, and I left Epic Wine and Spirits after 3 years and then moved over to work for Wolfgang Puck's restaurant at Cut in the Beverly Wilshire.
How was that working there?
It was an amazing experience.
Mhm.
The Beverly Wilshire is a Four Seasons owned and operated hotel.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
when you work for the Four Seasons,
Yeah.
you embody a culture
Mhm.
and a level of hospitality that is by far like anything else I've experienced.
Mhm.
You're coming to work, you're walking on marble floors.
Mhm.
Uh, Everyone who greets you looks you in the eye. They
Mhm.
smile. They
Mhm.
ask, how are you doing? How's your day? There's a genuine sense of care
Mhm.
that comes with it. Everyone who normally works there has been there for, over 10 years. People who come in, they don't leave. Um, and there's two different sides of the Four Seasons. There's the Wolfgang Puck side,
Mhm.
which is the restaurant side, and then there's the hotel side.
Okay.
And when you're coming in, you're operating on both. So you
Mhm.
have to be at the Four Seasons meetings, and you also have to be at the Wolfgang Puck meetings.
Okay.
So you have to be able to balance and manage both.
Mhm.
Tool. Working as a manager,
Mhm.
and I've been on the management side before,
Mhm.
but nothing at this caliber and nothing at this level. And on top of that, this was my first time managing a union
Mm.
employees, a union environment
Wow.
where you know there has to be, I think, a whole different division that upholds and addresses
Mhm.
disciplinary in the union,
Absolutely.
because I do think that unions are a great thing, and
Mhm.
they're there to protect the rights of individuals, but they can also be a space where it can breed mediocrity, and
Mhm.
it's hard to um, I would say it's hard to
It,
encourage.
it
And
adds, it, I understand because I did in the position that I held previously, I also had to manage union employees, and it adds a level of complexity as
Mhm,
a manager in how you interact with your employees that you work with, because
mhm.
of those, you have to be very, very careful. Very,
Yes, and
very,
for me, that was not I'm very transparent, let's just
yeah.
say that. And what you see is what you get. And I always smile and talk at the same time.
Mhm.
And, there's a level of non-transparency. There's a
Right,
level of diplomacy.
right,
And, I wouldn't say fake, but it's very, very professional,
right.
very diplomatic, very practical, and all the time. And for me, that can lead to an environment of people being phony,
Yep.
not not creating a sense of trust in the environment.
It's hard to
You
be real with people.
yeah, you cannot be real with
Very hard.
people and say, you're late.
Yeah. And it's not okay
It's
because
not
the
okay.
union is going to get involved and say that you were treating your team member with respect. I understand.
Yeah.
But
So any job that you work with, you realize that the people that you work with either makes or breaks your job.
mhm,
And the person who came in before me,
mhm,
she was a very, very knowledgeable, very experienced. I don't think she was a sommelier, but she worked in the wine industry,
mhm,
and she came from a Michelin star restaurant and had a very impressive resume. And at
mhm,
the time, our GM, Ellen Ferrantino, was looking for promoting woman and making an all-woman staff. And I loved her for that. And she brought in this really keen, fierce, sharp, knowledgeable woman.
mhm.
And she was very East Coast and very much New York in her
Okay,
sense.
okay.
And during her 3-month trial with the Four Seasons,
Mhm,
I don't believe she was necessarily the right fit for the culture of Four Seasons and Wolfgang Puck.
But it's
So
people oriented. You gotta have people skills.
yes, yes, you do. You've gotta bring in the trust, and you have to be a little bit likable because people on the West Coast are, are different from people on the East Coast.
We are.
They're
We are.
not so.
That is true.
That is true. So she split her with her separate way, and so it was just my GM and myself.
Okay.
And we're holding down a 350 seat restaurant plus like 100 seat lounge.
Wow.
And at the time, the Four Seasons went on a hiring freeze. So they weren't bringing anyone else in. And this is usually a 4-man operation. So at least a 4-man operation. And it was just her and I.
Wow.
And we were holding it down. And I tell you, I mean, you talk about working 65, 75 hours a week, meals, and having a smile on your face and being optimistic. And, you get punched down a lot sometimes in the hospitality restaurant because people come in with high expectations. This is tough. This is such a beautiful restaurant. It's one of those restaurants where you're going to save your appetite for it, right? So you're not going to eat all day because you're going to cut later on at night and you got a dress to fit into. So people come in having not eaten since breakfast and they're hungry. And they have hungry eyes and they're like, "Where's my table?"
Right. Waiting for this all day.
They want their meat exactly right. They said, I remember they asked for a steak medium rare, and then they cut off the side piece on their steak, and they go, "This is well done. I can't believe this." Da-da-da. And then you come over to the table, and you just gracious and apologize, and after they curse you out and curse the kitchen out, you say, "Well, I apologize for any inconvenience, but we normally start on the inside out, where arm in the middle. Do you mind cutting into the center of your steak to see if it's the appropriate temperature for you? And if not, we'll be happy to go back and put it on the grill." You got to kill people with kindness. Just kill them with kindness. And then they cut into the middle of the steak, and then there's blood running out, and it's nice, pink, and warm. And they're like, "Oh." And I'm like, "Absolutely. My name's Nikhil. You let me know if you need anything else." I mean, you just got to
You're rare because I'm man.
Yeah, you just kill with kindness. So I think that was one of the things why Ellen, she's like, "My lamb chop, I need you. I need your spirit here." Because being in such a high end environment, it can bring about a lot of, not necessarily negativity, but high stress. You're always moving, you're always going. It's boom, 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 boom. Very fast paced. And you have to have someone who is centered and who sees things on a positive side, will figure out a way, and someone who was her yin to her yang, and we worked really well together. We worked together for close to a year actually before I decided to leave the company, because you can only sustain that amount for so
long. I understand. I'm just thinking about some of my professional experience, not in the wine industry, but just the high stress in customer service.
Oh, the stories I could tell you off camera.
Okay, I got you. But then how that catapults you to the next level. So let's talk about that, because I'm positive that these experiences only prepared you for the next level and starting your own company. And so talk to us about that, because for me, entrepreneurship is big. It is so, that is so important. And I've just been so inspired by your story. So talk about how this catapulted you to starting your own company and what that's been like.
I had to get a little sip of liquid courage first.
I understand.
I think honestly, Jamara, you come to a point in your career where after you've invested so much, not just your time and your energy and your cankles on your sore on your feet, and you invest your hours and your life, and you see your check, and you see all the taxes, thousands of dollars of taxes on a monthly basis being taken from you. You come to a point of self-realization, and you say, "Okay, if I keep going at this level
Right.
for the next certain amount of years,
Hmm.
I will never acquire the wealth that I need in order to successfully live the life that I want.
You cannot, I don't understand. I mean,
Yeah.
I have to interject here because I mean,
Hmm.
people that sit in jobs for years and
Hmm.
years, you're
Hmm.
never, I mean, unless you have a job that's paying you $200,000 a month, I don't, and I don't know of jobs that really do that if you're an employee, but unless you move to the place of ownership,
Hmm.
you're not going to build wealth. You're just not. I mean,
I mean, you
unless
can.
unless you inherit it, which is a great thing. I mean, I always say there's the pillars of wealth is business ownership,
Hmm.
having investments. If you have, if you inherit money, that's great as well. But I mean, yeah, and real estate. Those are the things.
Yeah, yeah. And my salary with Wolfgang Puck was, pretty substantial.
Mhm.
I was happy, but I realized with my rent,
Yeah,
my car payment, my
in Los Angeles.
oh yeah, and then you're still just making enough to get by, and you're lucky if you can, put a few $100s back in savings. It wasn't going to be like this game changer where
Right.
I could literally save 50 grand a year and invest in something. That wasn't happening.
Not in California.
No,
I don't know anybody that does
no, I don't know anyone either. And I think you just have to say, you just get fed up. You're like, if I'm doing all of this to build someone else's brand or to
that.
build someone else's company, why am I not investing in myself?
Right.
Why am I not taking all this energy and applying it to helping me move forward?
Exactly. Why do we do that? People put so much into other people.
Mhm.
Invest in yourself.
Yeah, because of the fear, one, the fear, and we don't have a roadmap.
Mm-hmm.
The beautiful thing about Four Seasons is that you've got this 2 week of orientation. They give you a big old portfolio and a pamphlet. They tell you exactly what to say. They tell you exactly how to act. They tell you the steps to follow along, when to take. Yes.
But are they
And
going to give you the roadmap to open up your own Four Seasons or your own hotel? They're not going to do that.
no,
It's,
no.
for you to run their system, which is good. It's a great system. It's a
Yeah.
wonderful organization. But if you want your own, they're not going to give you that math. Not going to.
No, they'll give you the training. And I've worked for really amazing restaurant groups where I've got excellent training. Houston's, which owns Hillstones, Bandera, R&D Kitchen. I was able to work with them for a few number of years and acquire some really amazing skill sets that have been the foundation to the hospitality. But there does come a point where you're just like, okay, I need to invest in me.
Right.
I want it. Where do I see myself in the next 10 years? You come to a point where you get off of work, your feet are hurting, it's 3:30 in the morning, you can't sleep because you're still jacked up on the cappuccino to get you through the night.
Yeah.
You're just like, and I got to be at work again, and I'm, it's on my 6th day all through.
To
And
do it all over again.
yeah,
So,
and what is this worth it? And
right.
of course, it's worth the experience
Right.
because it's going to set you up for something else.
Mm-hmm.
And this is how great God is, Jamara. I did not see me having a wine tour.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that I was in a position working for the Four Seasons allowed me to make relationships and develop relationships with other sommeliers and wine managers who were at the Montage, who were at the Waldorf Astoria. We
Right.
went to Wally's after work because that was the only place that was open till 2 in the morning. A lot of industry people went there. And I got a chance to, prance around Beverly Hills after work if I had enough energy after work to go out. But it really allowed me to embrace my neighborhood. When I went on a break, I went outside and walked up and down Rodeo Drive because I was in a cute suit and I was like, I'm gonna show this off.
Hey,
and
mm-hmm.
and I left Wolfgang Puck not knowing that I was going to start Beverly Hills Wine Tours.
Mm-hmm.
I was actually probed and was asked to run a restaurant downtown.
Mm.
And they were going to open in, I think, a month or two, but they didn't actually get their permits through. So
Okay.
everything kept getting pushed back and it kept getting pushed back. And I was like, oh, I can't push back anymore. I need a job. So at the time, the Beverly Hills it really has an amazing wine community. I mean, you've got the Wine Merchant, which is this legacy, iconic wine merchant that is internationally known to hold the most renowned allocated wines in the world.
Mhm.
Um, then you have Wally's, which is in Beverly Hills, which is like in a European vinoteca. It was one of the first restaurants that actually had a liquor license that allowed them to stay open till 2 a.m, which is the only one in Beverly Hills, because Beverly Hills is a little bit of a sleepy town. Things close pretty early. Right next to it, you had Heritage Fine Wines, which is focuses on biodynamic and sustainable wines. And the owner, Andrew, he's an amazing man, and you got all these really beautiful French wines that are just pure in its essence, and and the whole vibe is just very relaxing and approachable.
Mhm.
Um, and then at the same time, you had this pop-up
Mhm.
on Rodeo Drive. You had a pop-up that was Saint Superi.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
Saint Superi is a Bordeaux house in Napa Valley.
Mhm.
And they did a 3 month pop-up that actually lasted for over 2 years. And
Mm.
it was amazing. You walk into this beautiful space. It's right next to Chanel on Rodeo Drive. And I come to find out Chanel actually owns Saint Superi Bordeaux house. They actually own 3 other Bordeaux houses in France, but
Okay.
they're the very first ones that actually invested in the Bordeaux house in the United States.
Mhm.
So you had Saint Superi, who had a whole lineup, and my fiance and I went there and had a wine tasting, and the wines were just superb. And I said, gosh, Beverly Hills has such a cool wine industry. Why isn't there wine events or a wine tour or something?
Mhm.
And my fiance said, well, there should be. You should start it. And I was
Mhm.
like, he knows when he tempts me to do something, I'm like, well, watch me do it then. I'm like, so I said, well, let me see. I mean, I don't know.
Mhm.
So I call up a few girlfriends and I said, hey, are you girls interested in doing a wine tasting? And
Mhm.
they're going, yeah, but God, the last time I went all the way up to Malibu, it cost me like $100, $50 there and $50 back for an Uber. And, or if we want to go to Temecula, who's going to drive? Because I don't want to be the designated driver and I want to drink. And I said, I know, right? There's nothing in LA besides Malibu and Temecula to go out and have a wine tasting experience. Well, how about we do something in like right here in the city in LA? And they're like, you mean just come over to your house and have some wine? And I'm like, no, like come to Beverly Hills. We can go around and do wine. And they were like, oh, okay. They really wasn't sure how it was going to work out. And honestly, I wasn't too sure how it was going to work out.
Mhm.
During the same summer, the Four Seasons launched their secret rosé garden on the terrace. And
Mm.
at the time, I was talking to one of my girlfriends, Lauren, and
Mhm.
I said, hey, I'm going to have some girlfriends and we're going to have some wine. And I would love to, bring them here in the lounge. And she says, well, actually, we're hosting this rosé garden on the top of the terrace, and
Wow.
you should bring them here. And I
Okay.
said, wait, what? The Four Seasons in the Beverly Wilshire is having a secret pop-up rosé garden. And
Mhm.
she goes, yes, and it's going to be fabulous. Everything is going to be pink. We're going to have a bocce ball court, and we're going to have the badminton. And I was like, oh, sign me up. So I brought all of my girlfriends. We started off at Wally's, and then we went to Heritage. We stopped by the Beverly Hills sign. Even though we lived in Beverly Hills, it was so cute taking a picture in front of the Beverly Hills sign like a tourist. And then
Uh-huh.
we went over to Saint Superi on Rodeo Drive, and we had a wine tasting there. And then we finished at the Beverly Wilshire. And it was all within a 2-block radius. We just walked. So it was like a sophisticated bar crawl, but with wine. And we had such a great time. And it was so fabulous. And, you know, my girlfriend could have swore she saw someone famous. She's like, isn't that so-and-so? And I was like, no, they don't come out here. They send their assistants. She's like, no, I saw someone famous. I saw, she just admit, I saw someone famous. But it was such a wonderful experience. And from that, just getting my girlfriends together, doing a little test run. And I was like, so what do you guys think about, you know, me doing a wine tour? And they were like, girl, yes, yeah, you know, cheers and supporting. And by this time, you know, you're like 4 or 5 glasses in, you're like, I'm going to do it. You know, you're like, I'm doing it. It's done. We're going to start tomorrow. And you're just like, oh shit, I just told all my friends I'm going to start a wine tour. I guess I got to follow through. And you just start, and you just start, and then you realize what has to be done.
Mm-hmm.
And you write out what needs to be done, and you write it down, you put check marks, you hold yourself accountable. One of the major tools that helped me start my business, because I did not have a business beforehand, and I really didn't know what I needed to do it. So I reached out to an organization called SCORE.
I've actually had a session with SCORE before. That's a good organization. But yes,
it's a really good organization, and it's free.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's free.
It's free. Yes.
SCORE.org, and they set you up with a mentor in the general area of what you're trying to be in. And I actually had 3 different mentors because I wasn't playing around. And she, oh, goodness gracious, she was amazing. You only get a half an hour with her. And you don't make any excuses. She holds you accountable to what you said you were going to do last week. What are you doing this week? I wouldn't advise you to do that. You need to get analysis. You need to get a marketing program. Go here and here and here. Figure out your marketing program. If you don't have time, outsource it. Learn to delegate. And I'm just like writing a mile a minute. And I'm like, okay. And then slowly but surely, you know, you build content, you get a web developer, you ask permission from all the the vendors, because the wine tour is only available, only is what it is because of the relationships that I've had. And I walked in as a Black woman, you know, being very just passionate and humble, and say, hey, I got this idea. And just tell me if I'm silly, but I really want to highlight Beverly Hills and the wine community in Beverly Hills. And I would love to bring people here during the day to drink wine. And they're like, so what do you want? A discount? What do you want? What, you know? And I'm like, no, I don't, we'll pay to come here and drink wine. And they're like, so you just want my permission to come in and spend money? Yeah, pretty much, you know. And like, I just want to let you know, because there's going to be like, you know, groups of like 10 and 12, and you know, and they're like, yeah, sure, come in. And I was very nervous, because the wine merchant is a pretty intimidating space. You've got the red ropes on the outside, and it's the luxurious red carpet that comes up, and it's on the edge of the Montage Hotel, and it's pretty intimidating. And you don't know what type of folks are going to come in from out of town in their flip-flops and their t-shirts that are going to come in and walk inside of the wine merchant. And your clientele is saying a lot about your level of business, and it's Beverly Hills. So those are one of the things that I had to learn with my mentor at SCORE to appropriately cost the tour. I want it to be, you know, $50. So I want everybody to have access to Beverly Hills. And she's like, nope, you're offering a luxury brand. So you're going to have to think about that and figure out what type of clientele you want and how much they're willing to afford and pay. And she says, how much are you willing to spend going to Temecula? The transportation alone is going to cost you $70 to $100, either going to Temecula or Malibu. The entry is free, but you're going to still pay at least $20 to $30 for what type of quality wine. You're offering really high-end quality wine, not some, you know, backyard commercial quality.
I'm glad that you mentioned that, because that is a principle of business that is so important. Is you really have to understand who your client base is. You really have to put some thought into that, because that helps you, of course, determine the level of service. It helps you determine the pricing. If you must put in thought as far as who is it that you're going to be serving, and what, like creating a whole mental picture, I would say, of here's my audience, here's my client, here's what this client is going to want. So I'm glad that you mentioned that.
Yes, I know, absolutely. I mean, and you know, you're going to make a lot of trials and you're going to make a lot of mistakes. You're going to have a lot of fear
Right.
coming into starting your own business, but
Mhm.
it's your character that builds all of that, and how you take a no, and how do you bounce back, and how do you continuously move forward, and how resilient are you
Mhm.
to the trials and tribulations that come. And if you can withhold them and withstand them and say, okay, you got knocked down, you're just going to get back up and dust yourself off and move forward and learn. There were a lot of mistakes that I made initially. I didn't hire the right marketing firm, or I hired the wrong marketing firm, and I signed a 6-month contract that cost me $20,000. And
Mm, that
and
hurt my heart.
yes, God. Well, I wanted it all. I wanted, you know, I wanted it to be on the social media. I wanted the email. I wanted, and their sales department was very, very good
Mhm.
at selling you exactly what you wanted to hear, giving you, instilling you the confidence that they have everything. They have professionals, and the company. I don't know if I can say the name, but it's the circumference of the earth. um, they were really good at telling you exactly what you wanted to hear. But when you signed the agreement and you went to go actually work
Right.
with the people who were managing your account, they were putting pictures of the wine tour with vineyards and rolling hills. And I said,
That's not what I'm.
it's a city tour. It's Beverly Hills, so we're not in the valley and there's no vineyards. And
Yeah.
I don't want to misrepresent what this really is. And it's a walking wine tour where you get to sip and sightsee and sip at the same time and have a luxurious wine tasting experience in the heart of Beverly Hills.
Mhm.
But this marketing firm, they were going to put a whole new website, and the website looked like, oh God, it was just rinky dink. And I was just like, okay, how do I get out of this?
Yeah.
How do I get out of this? And you can't, so I had to figure out what I had to do. I was Ubering and Lyfting in order to bring in an extra $2,000 something a month to sustain and pay for this stupid marketing firm that I didn't even use, but you have to figure it out. And I was like, this just set me back so much. And it took time away. And I was just like, but I was humble enough to say, well, I gotta do what I gotta do.
Mhm.
And I think that just living in New York at an early age made me a hustler and say, nobody else gonna do it, so you got to figure it out, and you have to have that mentality of, you got to make it work.
Mhm. You do
Yeah,
what you got to do.
do what you got to do.
So,
Why,
some people,
which is
what,
why, yes, on Proposition 22.
yes, I got the memo. I've been talking to different friends. They said, Jamara, you need to vote yes on this prop. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Got it. So I would like just to transition just a little bit. For those out there who may want to get into the wine industry, can you talk with us about tips, or what are things that you recommend that they do? And then also talk about what it's like being an African American in the wine industry, because I know it's not a diverse industry at all. So
Yes, that's a loaded question, because when you're outside of the wine industry and you want to know how to get in,
mhm,
you don't know all of the levels that are involved in the wine industry. You
right.
don't know the difference between a distributor to a
Mhm,
supplier
mhm,
to an importer to
mhm,
actually working in the vineyard.
mhm,
Uh, there are so many different avenues that you can get into in the wine industry.
mhm, mhm,
Um, and some people think that they have to become a certified sommelier
mhm,
before they're even taken seriously in the wine industry. And that's just not true.
Okay.
When I worked for Epic Wine and Spirits, I did not have my certification.
Okay.
I was just passionate. I let my passion guide me. When people hit me up on Instagram or social media and they say, we love your page, we want to get into the wine industry, what's the best way? And I always, I wouldn't say always, but one of the honest things that I did was, before I got in the wine industry, I didn't know anything about wine, and I purchased a book called Wine for Dummies.
Okay.
Yeah. And, I don't want to sound condescending when I tell people to go out and get this book, but it really is a great entryway into not just wine in the varietal sense,
Okay.
but also a little bit about the business. And it's funny, and it gives you little cute tips. And I think that, wine is a very evolving thing, and it's something that you're going to be in for a very long time. And when you initially get into it, whether you're going through a WSET program or the Court of Masters program, you're going to initially be brought into learning about the vinification and viticulture of wine. And for some people, that's not their shindig. They don't want to learn about how wine is made. They don't want to know about the history of the wine. That's all yawn, boring stuff. But you really have to understand the foundation of it, because it makes you have a greater appreciation towards it. And if you don't understand the fundamentals of what wine is and how it's made, and the spirit of wine, it'll be a little bit more difficult for you to grasp when you go into other varietals outside of what's presented in your grocery store. And some people get turned off by that. Some people, when they come into the wine and they want to say, okay, I want to be in the wine industry. So which program do I need to go into? A WSET program or Court of Masters? And they're both really great programs. I'm actually involved in both of them. The Court of Masters is more service oriented. So if you are interested in going down a career into hospitality and a restaurant, serving people, presenting the wine, being in charge of a food and beverage program, this is definitely a certification you want to pursue and go down. If you're interested in education and writing a book about wine, or teaching wine, or really just knowing education, the Wine and Spirits Education Program, our institute, is a really great program to go down as well. Both of them offer value, and they're both amazing. If you're in college, I would say, and you're getting out of college and you're working for the first job that hired you, but you really, because that's what you do. You take the first job that's going to, pay you when you're in college. I wish I would have known this at a younger age. I wish I would have, because age is always great when it's on your side, right? I would advise you, if you're young and you're not devoted particularly into one career or the other, to go and look for a distributor in your area. Either it's Young's, Southern Glacier, because they merged. So Southern Glacier is, I would say, one of the bigger companies.
Okay.
And then we're at an age where information is literally right at our fingertips, Jamara. It wasn't like it was, 20 years ago, where you have to go to the library and research and try to figure it out. Now you can say, top 5 wine communities and, or top 5 wine industry, Gallo's gonna pop up, and then you find out which wines you like. Start drinking wine and you say, oh my God, I really like this wine. Go on their website, send an email, and, just get in touch with someone, because it's not going to come to you, right? You've got to go out there and actively pursue any industry that you want to get into, whether it's wine or any other trade. I would say working as a distributor really shows you the business side of how things work in the wine industry. It really gives you an idea of that 3-tier process system that the United States has. It gives you access to a whole portfolio of different vineyards and different portfolios of wine and well, it depends on the portfolio, but that to me was just such a huge exposure of drinking a Carmenere or drinking a Gruner Veltliner or drinking, you know, these really exotic wines that really brought me to a whole different sense of place. You know, they say wine is like traveling in a bottle, and it really is, because you taste it and it tastes so foreign and so far away. It's not like anything you've ever had here before. And that's what really intrigues me about wine, is that it can actually transcend you into something in a different place. So I would advise people, one, you don't have to have your certification in order to get into the wine industry. It's always great to have it. It will increase your confidence. It will increase your awareness. Once you get into the industry, definitely pursue that certification, because the companies are going to be willing to help you compensate and help you pay towards your training. When you're in that process, either you're going to be a distributor, you're going to be on the off-prem side or the on-prem side, or maybe both, like I was working in that field. You're going to be presenting and working with a lot of different wines. From there, you can have an opportunity to work for a single vendor or a smaller portfolio that's more specialized, and that's being a supplier or like the brand ambassador for that particular company or that particular portfolio within the bigger umbrella of portfolios. When you're having this knowledge, you can actually get your import and export license. You can travel to the vineyards that you're representing. This is when you get a lot of the perks that come into the wine industry. You go to Italy, you meet the winemaker, and you're having a very luxurious lifestyle. You having a beautiful expense card, and you know, you're up in the air. You're traveling, you're drinking wine, you're pouring wine, you're selling the wine, you're educating the distributors and the sales force on what this wine is and how to basically go out and support the poor and be an advocate and a resource for this wine, and making sure it's represented in the places in the market that it needs to be.
Okay.
That's really amazing. And those are the only sides of the business that I've been on, is in the hospitality side and in the distribution side. And I'm going to go into the supplier side, but I was asked to come and work for Wolfgang Puck, and you go, oh, okay, I work for the chef. And then right now I started my own company, but there is an opportunity that is emerging now, which is direct to consumer, which is what I'm building as the Wine Girl. So the Wine Girl allows you as an individual who loves wine, who's passionate about wine and wants to sell wine, not so much in a formal sense to 3 tiers, which is the restaurants and the retail stores. You want to sell wine, but you want to sell it to your friends, your church group. You want to sell it to your lawyers. You want to have wine tasting events for your charities. These are the opportunities that Wine Girls have to come out and directly sell wine. And it's been a really an amazing experience, because the portfolio that I've decided to partner up with is the Boisset Collection, and the Boisset Collection is owned by Jean-Charles Boisset, and the Boisset family is I would say they're one of the largest Burgundian producers in France, if not the largest. His wife, Jean-Charles' wife, is Gina Gallo, who's the granddaughter of E&J Gallo. So you have 2 heavyweights, these 2 dynasties that are in the wine industry, and they merged New World and Old World together, and they created a whole collection of, I would say, over 300 different wines. They partnered up with celebrities like John Legend, and has
I saw that. I was like, wow, I didn't know John Legend had his own wine. Okay.
Yep, he partnered up with Jean-Charles, and they were able to make a beautiful Provence style rosé. He has an amazing Chardonnay, he has a Cabernet, and as a wine girl that is a Boisset ambassador, I am able to go out and to sell these wines and make a very impressive commission. My commission is up to 30%, which is a lot more than what I was making when I was working as a distributor, which was like 7 to 10%. Mind you, the volume is bigger because, you know, it's a restaurant,
Right.
but when you find those markets and you find those corporate accounts that I'm entitled to sell to, the volume is just as big and the compensation is even better. And the community at the Boissé Ambassadors is amazing. We just had a retreat earlier this year before COVID in Napa, and it was phenomenal. The company has grown. I think it's been around for not even 10 years, and it has grown to, oh my goodness, there's hundreds of Boissé ambassadors, and my team of wine girls is going to be probably I don't want to toot my horn, but we're a pretty good team within the Boissé ambassadors of as far as selling and as far as competing within the ambassador program.
That is phenomenal. That's amazing. Now, I have another question that I wanted to ask. When in terms of getting certified, so for those who do want to, you know, go full out, get certification, I believe in being well educated.
Yes.
Is it an expensive industry to get into? And the reason why I ask this is because I know, like, if you're doing the standard, you're going to, you know, going to college, you're getting your bachelor's, master's, whatever. You can pay out of pocket. A lot of people don't have money to pay out of pocket, so they get loans, or people can get scholarships. So for those that are getting educated in wine, they're getting the certification, are there different type of programs that are offered? Do people get loans, or do they do scholarships? Is it an expensive industry to get into? I imagine that it is, because it's so much luxury around it, but I'm ignorant to these things, so share.
No, that's actually a really, really good question, and you make a very valid point. I went to a small liberal arts institution where my tuition was $45,000 a year. And you times that by 4 years. And, you know, we're not even talking about your expenses on top of that.
Right.
And you get your bachelor's degree, and there's still no guarantee that you're going to have a job. But you have your bachelor's degree. It's something that you have to have.
Right.
And you're going to spend about $130,000 for a good education. You won't spend
$2K for me.
$2K. Well, you got your PhD too, girl.
Yeah, but I'm saying, like, I mean, I'm God is showing me the way.
He's showing you the way. Yes.
Pay off that loan, okay? Okay, go
ahead. So when you do the comps and comparable to a traditional brick and mortar education, and compare that to having a master's in a different field, it's pretty reasonable.
Okay.
However, you have to really ask yourself why you want to be. Do you just want the certification just to have knowledge, just to figure that you know it? Or do you want to get the best? Do you want to go all the way? Do you want to go until you're a master? And depending on the level that you want to go, is financially dependent on how much you're going to spend. When you go to your initial certification, and each level is 4 steps, with the Wine and Spirit Education Trust being one more additional step into getting your Master of Wine. But within the 4 years, I would say each program is roughly about $500 to $600 for each session. And then there's the addition for each session. So that's like for your certification, it's like $379, I think. And then for your certification as a sommelier, it's about $579 or $600 to $700. And then for your advance, it's about $700 to $1,000. And then for your master's, you know, it's a couple, I don't know, because I'm not at that level yet, so I haven't paid for it, so I don't know. But you do have to continuously resitting and paying and taking your master's until you finally pass. Some masters pass first time, that's like a 2%. The majority of the masters, master sommeliers have to resit and take it between 5 to 10 times. So that's, paying each time. Again, does that price accumulate to the cost of a bachelor's degree?
Mm-hmm.
No, but you also have to spend money on wine. You have to buy books. You have to actually travel to go to the sites. So those are ongoing expenses that you have to take on in this industry. And you have to love it and be passionate about it in order to invest in what you want. For the WSET program, it's about the same thing. I think it's a little bit more expensive. The education is a little bit more in detail. And the wine that you have, depending on where you take the courses, is included in the course. So you're paying for the wine in addition to the course material, which is where I'm doing it at the Wine House with Monica Marina, who's an amazing teacher. But it's an expensive journey, I would say. You have to get out of that comfort zone of only wanting to spend a certain amount of money for wines, because there might be wines that you need to taste and you need to continuously taste to build your palate. And these wines are going to be $40 to $50 a bottle. You can't have that I'm frugal mentality, and I'm very frugal. I'm like, well, how can I, stretch this out and put the cork on it and put it in the refrigerator? You have to literally be willing to invest in yourself, invest in your career. And there are scholarships that are available. I know Wine Unify has some. The Court of Masters just did a 10-week session with master sommeliers, and did, I think, 30% or 50% of the proceeds went to the was it Black and Brown people of color. It was like Black and I can't even think of Black and colored indigenous people. I don't know. I was like, I can see it, but I can't say it. Sorry. But if you go online and you Google it, we were just having a wine tasting about a month ago, and we came across the sisters.
Right. Yes.
The Wine Sisters.
Yes.
And they have a program that uplifts and unifies women, and they have a scholarship available for women, and particularly women of color, to pursue their education in the wine industry as well. So there's definitely opportunities out there. I've applied for few. I've never been granted a scholarship or have won any money for pursuing this field. I've been very fortunate because I came from a wine and spirits background. So I have relationships with, distributors who are able to send wine to an account for me, and they allow me to come in and sit at the bar and pour me blind tastings. So just having that connection and that resource has been, extremely beneficial for me in order for me to successfully pursue this career. But it can be hard depending on your state too. You have to figure out if your state is even going to allow you to get access into certain wines. You might be in a state that doesn't allow imports. So how are you going to taste a Gruner or an Albarino if you can't, your state doesn't allow you to get these wines, which is just so mind-boggling to me that we're still, it is what it is.
You've given, I really appreciate what you've shared, not related to the wine industry, but when we look at like traditional, academic programs and whatnot, Black and Brown, our communities have the highest level of student loan debt. And between Black and Brown, Black African Americans top it. And we have a 50% default rate when it comes to paying back those loans. And, growing up, it was always go to school, get your education. And education is really big in our community. It is. But a lot of people will go into debt. They acquire all this debt to get this degree that's going to get them into a job that's never going to pay them enough money to pay off that, to pay off that loan. And so my perspective as a trained educator, I do believe that it's important to make sure you're well educated, but at the same time, you got to count the cost. And you need to map out how much is it going to cost me to do this and figure out ways to get stuff done without going the route of getting a loan, because it's just,
Yeah.
it's more shackles. It's like, you know,
Mhm.
financial slavery. And so I appreciate you sharing, you know, giving a broad, you know, overview of what you need to keep in mind if you're going to go into this industry. These are costs that you're going to have to think about. It's not just about the education. You have to buy the wines. So you got to buy the wines that are the top tier wines so that you know what to look for. And all those things people have to take into consideration. So I really appreciate what you just shared.
No, absolutely. And you realize once you go through the first one, which is why they don't offer the program, the Master of Wine, as soon as you come into the industry.
Mm-hmm.
Once you go into the certification level, you get a sense, you get an idea of what the world of wine entails.
Mm-hmm.
And you say, okay, either it's for you or it's not. And if it is, you want to go further and further down that rabbit hole until you're eventually a master at your craft, which I think is what you want to be when you go to any, you know, field. You want to be a master at it, so that you're the not necessarily the guru, but you're the one
Mm-hmm.
that can actually. And I felt for me as a woman,
Mm-hmm.
and a Black woman,
Mm-hmm.
that I needed to have that level of mastery
Yes.
in order to be taken seriously and credible.
From one Black woman to another, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yes, PhD. Yes.
There's another level that we have to go to.
There's
It is what it is, but you know what? It makes us that much more up on our game, if you will. So
it very much so. And I'm in this journey, and it's been an amazing journey. I've been able to travel. I've been on a cruise on the Danube River, to see Vienna and Austria, and to taste wines in Eschek, and see Budapest, and really, you know, get a sense and the essence of the people and the culture, and having that background of wine, and learning about, you know, Lower Austria, and the Veltliner, and the Wachau, and knowing how to pronounce Wachau, because it's Wachau. I tell you, my pronunciation being in the wine industry has shot through the roof, because I had to be very careful about how I was pronouncing certain terms. And, you know, wine industry is one of the hardest. It's like being a doctor. You're saying all of these, you know, medical terminologies that are long, that people are just like, wait, what?
right.
The same is true with wine. Knowing where geographically these places are, and learning how to pronounce these varietals is so important. And when I first moved here, I didn't know anything, Javara. You know, people were telling me about this beautiful place in Oregon that has Pinot Noirs. And I remember being at a table, and I was like, oh my God, I love this wine, this Willamette wine from Oregon. And they were just like, really, bless your heart, what did you say? And I go, the Willamette, you know, and it's Willamette. But I had an aunt named Willamette, and that's how you spelled her name. So I just said, well, that's how you say Willamette. And, you know, I had no idea. And it's a humbling thing to experience. But man, it also makes you look back and you say, oh, I've grown and I've come a long way. I can show you where I was at and tell you things now. And sometimes I come back and I hear myself talk about wine, and I get not too esoteric, but I start talking about, you know, the tannins and all of the malolactic fermentation and all this stuff. And I'm just like, wow, I did not sound like that 10 years ago. So it's definitely an industry where you grow in and you evolve, and you become, I think, a better person. My dining skills has elevated. I realized being in the wine industry, working as a server, is that there's so much of our lives that is spent around a table.
Yeah.
Whether it's a breakfast table, a lunch table, a dinner table. I realized that a lot of meetings a lot of investors, a lot of those things happen over dinner.
That's right.
So you
That's
really need to learn about food,
Mm-hmm.
being able to pronounce things on a wine menu,
Mm-hmm.
and a food menu, knowing what Erkelver is. You're like, oh, just green beans? Why don't you just put green beans? You know? What is this? I gotta be all fancy with it. So, you know, just, and then the level of elevation that comes with your food experience, also your wine experience comes with that. And then when you're at that caliber of fine dining, you're going to meet people who are in that same field of fine dining. And so then your whole level of people that you interact with become different.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The culture is different, and that community level is different. And I realized at that level, you really have people who have, how can I say this? You meet people who are in a space to help other people.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Because they're not at that survival level where they have to hustle and they are living day to day and check to check, and they are living to survive. And you know, we've all been there and we've all had to do what we have to do. But then there's a different level where you have the convenience to splurge, to treat yourself, to invest in an amazing experience. And you're not necessarily struggling or worrying about where my next money is going to come from, or my next paycheck's going to come from. You're more so at a space of, how can I help you? Because at the end of the day, when we get there, we want to pull other people up with us.
Right. Yes, we do. Yes,
we want to help other people. We don't want to sit at a table at our bar by ourselves, have this amazing experience.
Right.
We want to share this experience with other people.
Exactly.
I have been approached so much just in that space alone, where I'm at a bar, and it's a high-end restaurant, and people look at me and they say, who are you and what do you do? And I tell them, and they want to help me, invest in me. And when you're at that space, that's when the blessings come in. And I'm thinking, this is a space you want to be in for the rest of your life. Because and then people are fighting for the checks, fighting to pick up the checks at the end of the night, which is just, it's such a beautiful space just to finally to be in, where I've been approached there, where they're like, how are you where you're at, and how do I become like you? And I said, well, here's my number. You call me. And I give you a time. I don't want this Instagram. What's your Instagram? No. You see me, you're talking to me. Take my number down and you call me, and we're going to sit down and we're going to figure it out. Because that's what you do. And when you're at a certain level, and I don't know if it's just 30 years old and over, or 40 years old and over, where people don't give out. It's like, I realize there's a certain point where there's people that ask for your Instagram, and there's people that ask for your business card. And then there's people who are like, you got me right here. What's your number? You're at the level where people are like, here's my number, get your phone, let's make this happen. And that's a beautiful space to be in.
Yeah. That is beautiful. Well, Makil, before we bring this to a close, share with us what's next. You've talked about your evolution and how you've just grown over the 10 years that you've been in the industry. What's next for you?
I'm open. I'm really open. Right now, the Beverly Hills Wine Tour is on the pause, just because we're in compliance with the state ordinance with COVID. But, I'm currently right now in my level 4 with the WSET program. We just, we're doing our champagne tasting and test in October. So that's the whole program. That's probably, I'll end up finishing my diploma by next year around this time.
Blessings to you in that.
Thank you. And then with the Court of Masters, the advanced course is next year over the summer, and I'll be attending that. And after you do the course, I think you have to wait about a year before you can actually sit and take the advanced certification. So your certification is an ongoing process that's always continuous. It's never changing. The wine world is always changing. But right now, I am developing the Wine Girl and developing that brand and getting that underway. So, and that's going to be taking up a lot of my energy and a lot of my time because it's a wonderful program to partner up with the Boissé collections and the Boissé team. To get some other wine girls in there to learn how to sell wine and make money.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, so before I close it out, can you please share with viewers how they can reach you?
Absolutely. You can call me at the Beverly Hills Wine Tour. Please leave a message. The number is 323-364-3494. I'm very accessible. Also, you can reach me at The Wine Girl or the.wine girl on Instagram and or Facebook. And you can also reach out to me at Mckeel, MCKEEL, at thewinegirl.com, which is my email. So there you have it. And I'm pretty, you know, if you want to reach out to me, I'm pretty accessible. If you have any questions, no question's a silly question. You know, we all got to start somewhere. So yeah.
And I can attest to what she's saying because I did, after seeing her on LinkedIn's article, I went on her Instagram and I saw her contact information. I reached out and I was shocked that she emailed me back. I was like, oh, she actually reached back. So yeah, she will contact you. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Tamara, for having me. This has been such a lovely interview. This is great.
It's been a pleasure. I really appreciate your willingness to take out time. I know you're a very busy lady, and so I appreciate you taking out this time to talk with me and just to inspire people. It's been time well spent for me. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Absolutely. This has been such a lovely time to talk with you, Jamara, and to share my my journey with everyone out there and to pass the baton, you know, to pass it along and to give back and to show and motivate and encourage other people that you can be in this industry and it's not just for predominantly white men, and that anyone who has a passion and a heart to learn and grow in this industry, we're pretty open and wanting you involved. So yeah, thank you.
All right. Well, to my viewers, there you have it. I'm thankful that we were able to spend this time with Mckeel. Please do be sure to look her up, reach out to her. And with that, I'm going to bring this to a close. Blessings to all.